There is. All right, so this is Marcos from Flow Design Architects. We are going to explain basically how to create a building analysis, code analysis. The city of Somerville keep asking when you have more than two family to do building analysis that typically applies to commercial projects. So that's what we are gonna go over with Carolina Vitelli here at the office. Okay, so Carolina, you can see my screen, no
Yeah.
problem there. So the first thing that I would recommend the team is to open the Revit file because you will get all the information that you need from the Revit file, Revit model. I think that that's the first thing that I typically do. The next item to make sure that you place the file on the right folder. Basically, I was mentioning to Carolina that we went over the same situation for another project, and then we had to create the same condition. So I copied that zoning analysis that we're gonna be more not zoning but building analysis that we are gonna be modifying to apply for this particular project. So if you guys go inside the folder, whatever project it is, then go into design. There is a folder here that says code analysis. In this case, there is already a preliminary one because I already made a lot of modifications to the other one. I don't like using this one. But if you don't have a base, that's where you will find it. Do you have any questions, Carolina?
Nope.
Yeah. Um, I'm more proactive with the video, so you know. So what I did, I eliminate the ones that don't relate to us, and I'm gonna attach the one that I have that we have done in the past. And then what I would do is I would change the project name so it relates to your project. Waterhouse Street. In the other project, it was only unit one. In this case, it seems that it's the entire um, 3 floors.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm just gonna call it a street, the project street, project name, and then I'm gonna put or the date, which is today's date. Okay, that's step number one. Step number two, let's open up this file. Can you see it?
Hmm.
Um, okay, typically, because in this particular case, there is a lot of sheets. There is about 10 sheets on this um, code analysis. So we're gonna go sheet by sheet to explain what they mean. Um, Carolina, you can update this information. I'm not gonna update it, but um,
Okay.
that's something
Hmm.
that you can definitely update. First thing, I will change the date. I'm gonna put it in red so you know what you need to update, Carolina. Um, the project name, all the project information that relates to this particular project. Of course, you're gonna put it in black whenever you are done with it. Then um, a typical description of what it is. So what is it that you're doing? Is it 14, existing property at, um,
30 Waterhouse Street.
mhm, 30 Water Street. Um, you know, we know it's a wood frame construction. This square footage, you're gonna obtain it um, when you do the calculations that we're gonna go over shortly. But that's something that will be need to be updated. Um, then what um, project? Let me reduce the sound of the music quickly. Sorry to interrupt. Um, typically, I would I will see if you have that information of where the project is located. If you don't find it, typically if you go to the zoning table, you can find it. Pretty straightforward. If you don't find it and it doesn't relate to your particular project, I would just eliminate it so you don't, spend the time on that. But I would like to show it just to say, hey, we are in this particular district or something like that.
But is
Okay.
this related to the use or is it the zoning area?
Oh, that's a good question. So in this case, this is related to the use. So, but there is another one, which I think there is no zoning in here. But if it was a new build, there will be another category in here that says zoning, like zoning analysis, and then whatever town it is from.
Mm.
In this case, you are absolutely right. This is in regards to their use of this building, which is R2 residential use group. Now there are different categories. There are assisted living will be categorized as a different use group, but in this case, it's apartments. So it's R2 in this case. Good question, Carolina. Next item is basically a project description of what exactly you are doing. In this particular project, um, we are actually renovating all floors, interior renovations. So I would put a description of what exactly you are doing in here. This comment is very important. It says, this review covers level 2 alterations of work for the work area compliance method. What that means is basically saying like, hey, there are different levels of alterations in construction. There's level 1, which is literally if you want to do like painting, like if you want to do changing the floors, that kind of stuff. Alteration number 2 will be changing doors, changing windows. And alteration number 3 is like the most constrained one. That's like if you're modifying over 50% of the square footage of your property. In this particular case, it's a complete gut, but there are a lot of existing walls that we are not demoling or changing. So I will feel confident that it will be level number 2 alterations. Okay, so next important item to understand is to know if the building is a sprinkle. That's very important. Is the building a sprinkle? I don't think so, right?
It wasn't. I don't know if they are gonna.
Okay, okay. Um, it's important to know because they might ask them if this is the third floor unit, is existing unit, then it's under, it's saying like, okay, it's granted. But
Mhm.
if you were proposing a new third floor unit, then the entire floor will potentially have to be a sprinkle.
Ah, okay.
So in this case, like, okay, it's not a sprinkle, so I don't care about it. It's existing. We're gonna say it's existing.
Mhm.
Um, so what you would do is, in this case, if it was a sprinkle, you would just say, this project, the existing, you can say the existing property is a sprinkle, you know,
Mhm.
type of stuff in here. So that way they know that it's a sprinkle and it complies right away. This image relate to that old project, so I would just eliminate that one and put a new one that relates to the project. That's cover sheet. Any questions on that one?
Yep.
Okay, then the second sheet, it, it has like a relevance of codes in here. It has it has the Massachusetts State Building Code, the ninth edition, which is what we use. It has the International System Building Codes, 2015. It has the International Building Code. It has the Energy 2015 Energy Conservation Code, which should be in here. We're going to specify is 2018. IEEC Energy Conservation Code 2018, and then we show the plumbing, the Massachusetts Plumbing Code, just to let them know, hey, how many bathrooms we're showing in relationship to how many you will need and that kind of stuff.
Shouldn't it be IECC?
IEEC, you are right. Let me just check the spelling. Let me check the spelling on that. If you ever have that question, just go inside the project folder, um, project management, 2015 codes, and then you have it in here. So it's IECC. You are right. International Energy Code, Conservation Code. Now, this one is 2015, but there is a new one already, which is the one that we're using. Uh, the code and then the energy, we should get the actual copy and put it in a folder. But we know it's 2018 already. Okay, good question. Oh, good clarification there, Carolina. Okay, the next thing I would do is I will change this item, the title right away, so that way you don't get, it doesn't, you know, get confused in the future. So 30 Waterhouse, 30 Waterhouse Street, and then I will put the day as well, which is July. So there are things that you will have to do still, Carolina,
Mhm.
but there are some items that it will be updated already. Uh, July 09. Okay, so that is already updated everywhere. It should be updated everywhere. Okay, any questions?
Yep.
Okay, so the first one, um, scope, it's gonna go with the um, Massachusetts Atole International Existing Building. This one, let me see if I have a category for that one specifically. Oh, right here with Massachusetts amendments. This one, I should actually create another one that relates to this one, but for now, I don't think it applies because we submitted it the same to another project and they didn't have any issues. So which means that they didn't care about whatever that one meant, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so International Building Code, ICC. This one relate to the chapter that is located, and then amendments. Amendments are basically changes that Massachusetts has to the building code. But in this case, it's already taken care of, so we don't have to modify it per se. Um, so basically, it creates, what it is scoping administration, the sections that applies to us. If there's a specific sections, like for example, we were doing um, uh, a marijuana dispensary in Maine a couple months ago. Well, actually, it's been like a year almost. And we had to change all of these sections because it had to relate to that particular use group, if that makes sense. In this case, it's residential. We have a residential slash commercial. So we don't necessarily have to modify this unless they ask us to do something specifically that relates to the code,
Okay.
if that makes sense. So all of these sections relate to what you're trying to do. All right, so let's go side by side. So this section, uh, does it apply? Yes. The alteration, repair, addition, and change of occupancy of existing buildings should be controlled. It's basically just affirming what needs to happen in case you are doing a change of use for a particular project. It's just basically saying, hey, whatever changes we need to do need to comply with this. So you don't have to change anything in here. Um, Applicability. Yes, it applies because the building is previously occupied for the same use. If you were changing the use, here you will have to say, um, yes, building will be, or proposed project will change the use of the building, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you are basically saying proposed project will involve alterations, which is described in here already. So that part, there's no issue there. Um, any questions so far?
Nope.
It's pretty straightforward, nothing crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So other section is says yes, it applies. Existing building investigations or evaluation has been completed in compliance with the International System Building Code and its appendices as amendment of Massachusetts 780 CMR. What that basically means is like, if you go to that chapter, chapter 34, it tells the architect to go and do field verifications and existing conditions and making sure that the architect is present on site, making sure that whatever you're showing in the drawings is exactly what is there. That's what they are saying in that.
Mm-hmm.
So basically it's saying like, yes, we went there, we measure it, we know exactly where the walls are. So you don't have to change anything there. All alterations to fire protection, means of egress, energy conservation lighting should comply with the modifications to that code. So it's just basically affirming, same thing. We are not alternating the egress, are we? I don't think so.
No, they're keeping the same.
Yeah, so we have two means of egress in there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I believe. So we will go
Yeah.
back to the plans, but that's what that means. If you were altering the egress, you can say, you can say C, you know, C, existing project,
We are creating egress windows. I don't know if that counts.
not really, because I mean, egress window, it's just it's a co-complying item,
Mhm.
but because it's like if you are changing the actual way that people exit, the egress window is in case of extreme emergency.
Mhm.
People typically don't live through that egress window to be able to exit in that case, but we're showing it as a requirement. But in this case, they mean more about the actual exit distance and all of that.
Mhm.
So if you were alternating that or modifying the exits, you can say here the partition project will alternate exits or that kind of stuff. Net section does not apply. Applicability, no. I don't think the system project is in a flood zone area, right?
It
I
shouldn't
don't.
be.
Okay,
No.
I don't think so. It's in the center of Somerville, so I don't think so. So basically, just saying like, no, this building is not located within a flood hazard area. And what that means is, if your project was, yes, then there are requirements that we need to comply in regards to that. Probably in PVD, for example, you have to, the lower level, it's typically parking or something like that, and then they build on top of that because of flooding problems
Mhm.
and issues. That's the sheet. All right. Next sheet talks about provision compliance methods. General compliance necessary with applicable requirements of IBC section through. This you don't have to change. It just basically, that's the thing with building codes. It's that when you do one, then it doesn't, you don't have to go over and over again unless they change it. So in this case, we don't have to go over those chapters, you know?
So
Yeah.
basically, every time it is residential, we can just keep the same sections and the same like.
It's for the most part. And even if it
Mhm.
is commercial, if it is, because this is residential, but it's small commercial, so it's, if you're doing a major building, I will go over what those chapters mean and go back and be like, okay, let me just confirm that this is what it's supposed to say in regards to that.
And then if you change the use, will it change the sections you're mentioning or?
It could, it could. So it's exactly, and we're gonna go over those in a little bit, so you can see what I mean. We had to do that in couple projects, so I had to do some extra work. Okay, so classification of work is basically saying what the different sections are. So repairs, no. Repairs are proposed, no repairs are proposed to the existing structure of the building. If you were gonna do additions, then that applies a yes,
Okay.
or if you were going to do a dormer or something like that, then you can say yes. In this case, we're not. But we are, I think we already explained alternation one and alternation two. So this is, both of them applies. Yes, because you are doing those items.
Mhm.
Okay. This is basically saying what it is. And you can clearly see here addition or eliminating of doors, windows configuration, or extensions of systems and that kind of stuff. So you don't have to change none of this.
Nice.
Alteration three, no, because we are not modifying more than 50%, even though we are in technicality, we kind of are, you know, um, but because existing floor plans and walls are the same, I don't want to trigger the 50%. And that also applies to how much money you are investing in the changes as well. If the value of the home, let's say the value of the home is 500,000, right?
Hmm.
If you're modifying 50% of that value, which is 250,000, then you need to comply with everything. Meaning you have to go over every single thing, and everything needs to comply to the new code,
Oh.
because that's what that means as well. There are two things. There is the 50% of the aggregate area of the building, meaning how much of the building are you modifying? And there also in the Massachusetts one, it's like 50% of the value of the property as well.
I see.
Mhm. So it all applies in whatever it is. All right. Next section, changing you in occupancy. We are not changing the occupancy, so that stays. Additions, we are not having an addition. If you were gonna do an addition, then yes. And then specify no modification to the floor area of number of stories provided.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, we're all having meetings, huh? Right now. um, okay, so that's that. Okay, next, historic buildings. This is not a historic building, so we are okay. I don't think, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if it was, then we have to put yes and then look into what the historic um, preservation department require. Um, so alteration number one, basically what that means is, you see how we say yes on alteration number one? This is
Hmm.
basically saying exactly like what that means.
Uh,
So for example, alteration number one, um, no, the building is not located in a floor area. It's basically saying like what you already told them, but in that alteration number one. That's, it's basically repeating, duplicating the same information, but in different ways. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So alteration number one, building elements and materials. Yes, all new finishes, flooring, trim, walls will be and should comply with the requirement for new construction. You're basically telling them, yes, all of the new stuff needs to comply with the requirements so that you don't have to update. Fire protection. No, the building does not contain a fire protection system, meaning a sprinkle system. So it doesn't really, it doesn't really relate to us in this particular case. Means of egress. Yes, alternation to a mixture egress component should maintain the level of protection provided. So if you do alternate, you know what? Um, we're gonna put yes, but in reality, you're not alternating you're not changing the egress. I don't think on here.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Accessibility. Yes, the system building and proposed projects are accessible. That's a question mark in here because I don't know. You know, that's something we
Mm.
need to look into it. If this was a commercial space, then we will specify, main entrance is accessible or, that kind of stuff.
To be honest, I don't think it is because I have stairs in both
Hmm.
egress, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And also it doesn't have an elevator either.
Yep.
So I would say um, you can say accessibility. I'm already updating this for you, so you don't have to do this part. All right. So you say um, you can say like the system building um, does not comply um, with ADA accessibility requirements. Okay, and then you can say proposed project um, does not alter existing condition. Basically saying this she owns. Basically telling them like, hey, our new project does is not gonna change, alter that condition that it already exists. You know, structural, no, that's just it won't be modified. Energy conservation, yes, modifications are made to the existing building envelope, which is what we were talking about.
Hmm.
The existing mechanical elements will be okay. You see, I don't know this information. I don't know if the existing mechanical will be used. If it is a complete gut, they probably will do new mechanical.
Yeah, I think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, so if that's the case, what you do is you go back to this, to that comment that say and should comply with requirements. So I will
Hmm.
go back and say um, new new mechanical elements will be installed, and then you copy that text.
And shall comply. Hmm.
You know, you are basically protecting the company. You are protecting flow by doing these items because you're saying like and protecting the client too. Because then they are like, oh, it wasn't installed, but then I'm like, okay, based on the code that we provided, it should be. You know,
Hmm.
so you can say the new mechanics will be installed and should comply with the system require with the new construction. The same thing, new LED lighting. Typically, we use LED
Hmm.
just for um, um, as a rule of thumb, and should comply with the new requirements. Call it a day.
Okay.
All right. Level two. You see how the level two has much more? So level two, yes, complies with level one and two requirements. No, no special occupancy exists. Building and materials, no, the project code contain no vertical openings. Um, in this case, like if you vertical openings, meaning like if you have a big shelf or like an elevator, its stairs are actually an opening, but that's not what they meant when they say that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They meant like if you have a shaft, like an elevator, or that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Because the fire could travel through the shaft and like burn the other floors. That's what they meant. Okay, so small compartments. No, the building does not contain a use group I took occupancy. That's a particular requirement for that use group. So if you have questions about it, then you can go to the building code and then you can go to I group in terms of small compartments and they will tell you what that means. Um, yes, interior finishes. You should comply so that you are good. Guards, meaning like changing areas. This is regards to the stairs. So level change of more than 30 inches. NA is not compliant. It doesn't apply
Mm-hmm.
to this project. So you have it here, like in case you have to do like a new deck or something like that. If you have less than 30 inches, then you don't need a guard. But in our case, it doesn't relate to our project, if that makes sense. Okay, so section of for automatic sprinkler and fire protection. No, the building does not contain a fire alarm or sprinkling system. So um, that you don't have to change. Stem pipe, stem pipes. When a building is higher than 50 feet, then you need to provide an area of protection within the stair shaft. So for people to go in there and be protected from the fire. That's what that means. And it has to be a certain width and certain um, the square footage. So in this
Mm-hmm.
case, it doesn't apply because your building is no more than 50 feet.
Okay.
Okay. Next, fire alarm protection, same thing. No, doesn't relate or no, doesn't have that. Means of egress, no, exit signs and means of egress line are required to be installed, which they are. It's a three family. Are you doing a life safety or no in that project? I
We have.
yeah, I think so too. Okay. So just make sure that relate to that. Okay. Yes, accessibility requirements should be in accordance with 521 CMR and is fully accessible. What that means is that um, interior, like the main doors for this unit need to be at least 36 inches of width for people to actually be able to exit from their actual units. So that's what that means. So we need to make sure that that's the case. Structural, we're not doing the changes to structural elements. Electrical, yes, all the new, it will be a complete gut. So then that applies and it needs to comply with the new construction. The same with mechanical. Plumbing fixtures. Oh, I don't see myself in here. Can you see me? I don't see you. Um, oh yeah, sorry.
Am I
I don't
back?
know. Yeah, you are back. For some bizarre reason, my thing is having issues, but I don't know. All right. Mechanical, yes. Um, same comment. Plumbing fixtures. If you were increasing the square footage of any commercial building, then you need to look into the plumbing fixture counts. In this case, it's existing, so it doesn't apply, and we're not increasing the occupant load of that. Oh no, thank you, I have some. Thank you, guys. Um, so energy conservation, yes. No modification are made to the existing building envelope, which I think we put yes, right?
To
Mechanical,
the
yeah. Let me copy this one. Basically the same thing.
okay.
Okay, right there. So that it's basically the same language that you had. Any questions regards to that?
No, how
Okay.
far it's okay.
All right. We are almost there. These sections is what you're actually gonna work on, Carolina. This is the ones that I just wanted to explain you everything to get to this point. This is the one that you're most likely gonna change. So, International Building Code IBC 2015, fire alarm. We already know that we don't have a fire alarm, but because this is a different code, we need to do we basically need to
Mm,
reassess it and say like, yes, we do not have a fire alarm. Construction type, chapter 6. If you have any wood construction, you will be a 5B type of construction. If you were steel, you will be 2B. If you were a combination of steel and wood, it will be 2B. If you were steel, only steel, it will be 2. Number 1, there are no many project types 1. That's basically like all like concrete. Imagine like a concrete box. That will be 1. But you will never see a building that is all concrete and even finishes concrete and all of that, you know? All of this
oh,
I
even the finish has to be.
well, kind of, because like even though the project type is a, you can say, you can argue that, you know, if your project scope is only to do the exterior, you can say, oh, my project is type 1, you know, it's all concrete. If you're doing, oh, but inside I'm doing wood trim piece that relate to the
Uh,
exterior, and then it's like, is it really type 1, you know?
I see.
Probably not. So that's when you start arguing that thing. Most residential projects are going to be 5B, and that's what we base it off. Steel, as I said, is your secondary one. It probably will be like 2B,
Hmm.
which is the most of the ones that we use here at the office. So 5B, wood frames, exterior and interior walls. So we're good on that. Building heights, I don't know how high this building is. I don't know if the project has it.
No.
I don't think we have elevations or anything like that. So, but if you know, you can count here and see how high it is. That's why it's important to have the Revit model open. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this in red, Carolina. So just so you know that that needs to be updated.
Hmm.
Building height, how many stories are in this building? So 2.5 stories, which we know by this picture. That is 2.5 stories.
Is there any case in which we consider the basement
Mhm.
when we
Uh,
are talking about stories, or the basement is always?
yeah, so what happens is like if you go into, that's a good question, Carolina. If you go into what they describe as stories
Hmm.
requirements, images or diagrams. I wanted to show you with an actual visual so you can see what I'm okay, here I don't have a section that show what I'm trying to say. Okay, well, this is just an example, but you see where grade is
Hmm.
in relationship to the basement. When the grade, when the basement is lower than the grade, then you don't count that as a level or a story.
Okay.
If the ground goes in an angle, so portion of the basement it's open to grade and then portion is not, like in the case of LIDA, the LIDA project.
Mm-hmm.
It technically will be 2 stories in
Okay,
technicality,
I see.
but you will grab the height from half of that floor into whatever that is,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So it's still, you count the stories that are above grade, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Okay, so this area you need to, I'm gonna put it in red. Um, so here is just basically specifying what you're gonna do, Carolina, is you have a second floor here, and then you have an attic floor as well. I'm basically just duplicating, putting it in red so you can see what you need to do. Attic floor. In the other project, I only had to show that only unit. In your case, you have to show the entire thing because the entire thing is kind of your project. And then I would do underline in there, and then gonna say, you can say totals or something.
Mm.
Um, if you want, you can put the basement, but you can say basement storage only or something like that. You
Okay.
know what I mean? Okay. Any questions in regards to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna, again, I put it in red, whatever you need to modify. So in the front, we're gonna modify all of this stays, and then this needs to be modified. All right, use and occupancy. Yes, existing and proposed use group, primary is R2. So it's existing and proposed. If you were changing it, then you need to update that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Building height and area, basically the same thing. Um, you don't have to go over these items because I already did. Basically, what that means, if you go to that table, it tells you how big you can go based on the construction type and you know, what you are doing in there. Okay, so require separation of occupancy. No, 1 hour fire separation required for a non-sprinkle building between dwelling units. This does not apply because you don't have a unit next to another unit. All your units are on top of each other and they are existing. So that's why if you were proposing a new unit, then you need to create a 1 hour fire rating assembly between the units. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So, okay. Construction type, yes. 5B has a 1 hour for exterior walls, 1 hour for bearing walls, 1 hour for floor, and 1 hour for roof. So this is an intriguing one because it's a complete god for you. So you can say in here that, but it's existing. So leave it as it is. What happened?
I think we are showing, let me open it. I think we are showing fire resistant walls around the stairs.
Okay.
I don't know if
Uh,
that
yep,
apply. Yeah.
it does apply. It does apply. But one thing is vertical,
Mm,
and then another thing is the fire rating between the units.
okay.
That's what, because if a fire starts here, how long does it take to get to the second floor unit, which is what they're trying to? increase.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes people, so it gives people more time to be able to exit the building.
I see.
Um, all right, so we go back to that. We don't have to modify this. Okay, next. First floor, this you need to modify. This deal with um the occupant load. How many people technically are allowed based on the square footage of this place? So this is when you go into the floor plans and you go. I'm just gonna do this quickly, but you will have to do this for the calculations, Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into annotate field region, I'm just gonna do a quick calculation. You will go to the interior of the wall for this calculation, not the exterior.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go in here, it's 1,055 or 56 square feet. So if I go to my square footage, 1,056 square feet. Now you need to update this, Carolina, by the way. You know that already.
Mm-hmm.
You can change that. First floor. For residential project, based on the code, it's 200 square feet per occupant. So in this case, 1,000 divided into 200 will be how many occupants? Five.
Yeah.
Five occupants. Now you will go. So in other words, you cannot have like five, like 6 bedrooms in this first floor because you know what I mean. The
Mm-hmm.
occupant load wouldn't allow you to do that.
Does the code consider one person per bedroom or two?
It's
Or
it.
it's
That's a
all.
good. That's a good question. That's a good question. The code doesn't specify how to explain it. You don't know that one person, it's one per bedroom if you consider it that way, because we don't know who's going to be living there. So the code doesn't really focus in that aspect of things. That's why they give you square footages to base it off that,
Okay.
because we don't know. But the square footage is for the occupancy, not necessarily of what the floor can handle of that particular
Mm-hmm.
project, because that will be another calculation, like for structural, like what is the pound per square feet of that particular it's different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that in your house you can only have 5 people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more for the calculations that you need for the egress of this space.
One thing regarding the square footage,
Mhm.
if you don't mind opening the plan back, because there's like a foyer,
Mhm.
do we consider it? Because yeah, all this entrance is like a common, not at the front.
Like this. Oh,
Y-
that foyer.
yeah, do we consider that?
Oh, no, definitely not. I just
Okay,
didn't see it quickly. So yeah, it will be only the unit.
okay, I should make
Well,
sure.
actually, that's a lie. What you will have to do in that case, if you want to be that specific, Carolina, you could do a separation of the square footages. You can say first floor, you can say um, entry area, and then you can say the square footage or what it is,
Hmm.
and then what it relates to the code for egress of that. How is it considered?
Okay.
So if you go to, sorry, I'm going over a lot of things, but one thing relate to another, relate to another, relate to another. So if you go to International Building Code 2015, and then you go to chapter chapter 10, means of egress. Can you see this PDF or no?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right here. If you go to this table, table 1004, it has the square footages that we're talking about. So in here, you can say, you can see residential, 200 square feet um, per occupant.
Okay.
So the entire residential, you can potentially just count it as like residential area of the entire floor. If you want to be more specific for like, you know, egress and like that main entrance, you can say industrial, equipment to size room, business area, assembly. Hmm. You even have a storage here if you need to calculate how much for storage. Yeah, honestly, I would just use the 200 square feet for the entire thing because that is not an assembly space. That little entry is not an assembly space.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like an entry point. So you can still use the 200 square feet gross.
Perfect.
All right, good question. All right, so we are actually almost done with this one. I just wanted to go over with you on this. Attic floor will have some information. I'm putting it in red, and then you're gonna have the total amount here, which I'm gonna put in red as well. It's gonna change, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next, egress. So if you go to the code, it tells you for corridors and doors, you need 0.15 inches per occupant. I will explain that in a second. And then in its 0.02 inches per occupant. So if I go to this scope of work, here you can say, you don't have to specify every single floor. Let's just say project, all floors, all floors scope of work, the total amount of occupants needs to change for the doors and the corridors. And then what you're gonna do is if you have, let's say
Four.
three for total at, well, let me see how I did this calculation so to make sure that this is accurate. So let's go back to the model. How many exits you have of this project, of this building?
Um,
You have two
it's
exits.
yeah, two per unit into.
Okay, so this door is, if I click on the door and that door is right? That door is accurate, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this door is 34 inches. Is it 34 inches? Let me just make sure it's 34 inches. Wow. All right. So you have 134 inches. This one is 36. You see that one? 36. So you have, if you go back to your thing here, you actually have two leaves. Leaves is basically how many door size you have. If you have French doors, which I have two, that
Mm-hmm.
will be two leaves of, you know, a certain feet or inches. Does that
Got
make
it.
sense?
And if I have a double door, I still count it
Th-
as one, or is it?
That will be two leaves
Okay.
because leaf is basically the concept of like the swing, like how many swinging doors do you have?
Okay.
So in this case, you have two leaves at one leaf. You can say one leaf at 34 inches actual, and you need to duplicate this because they are different. And one leaf that is 36. then you will duplicate that same information because it applies to the doors, of course. It applies to the corridors and applies to the doors. Okay, so you have two of them.
Mhm.
So which means that you have 34 plus,
70.
what happened?
No, are you gonna
Yeah,
uh,
34 plus, yeah,
70?
yeah, 70. Yeah, got it. Here you go. You send me sometime. Okay, so let's say you have 10 occupants, right? If you multiply 10 times 0.05, 10.0, actually 10.15, it tells me that it's crazy, but it tells me that I only need 1.05 inch for that. It's weird. I know. Let me try a different way. So 10, 200 square feet. So
Is it 15 inches or 0.15 feet?
no, because oh, that's a good question. That's something we might need to look back, but it might be that. It might be that. I should check on that specifics. I know it complies. I know people can answer it. That's something that we might need to touch base. Um,
Mhm.
but for now, whenever calculation you have, you can show me and you can tell you if you have questions regarding that. It's absolutely fine.
Okay.
The same thing applies to doors. So 0.15, 0.02 is if the project is a sprinkle. So I know that your project is not a sprinkle. So it's 0.15. Um, and then here we just have a note that says the minimum corridor width should be 44 inches and the minimum door should be 32. So right now you comply. So you don't have to touch that. Okay, next, exit travel distance. Yes, comply. 75 feet is the maximum allowed travel distance. First floor total egress is, that's when you go to here. See how you have 33 feet 5 inches?
Hmm.
Then you document that so it relates to the drawings. So it's 33.5, 33.5. So what you will do is you will basically do second floor
Another.
and attic. I'm gonna put it in red so you can modify it.
Hmm.
Okay, minimum number of of exits or access per story. Yes, floor one requires, in this case, we didn't have to show two means of egress because the square footage was so small that there are requirements that you could show one exit if the square footage is pretty tiny.
Okay.
In this case, we're gonna put floor one requires two exits and two exits are provided. You see this? No, maximum occupancy low for one exit, it's 10 occupants. Total occupants in the space is 3. You see what I mean?
Hmm.
Like that, I'm basically trying to explain, yes, it complies because of this. In this case, it doesn't apply to you. We can do this. Um, what's that? Okay. If you corridors, um, i- corridors should comply for an 1 hour rating for like when people exit the unit. So in your case, we are counting basically the stairs, like as your means of egress for these units. If let's say you have a big building and then you have a corridor off of the
Hmm.
unit, then that corridor should be a 1 hour rating, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Um, in this case, it doesn't apply because there's no a corridor that you have to go through it to be able to exit, if that makes sense. Um, so if we go into the other section, the minimum corridor width should be 44 inches. I mean, what is this width? This is not really a corridor, but kind of is. That's
Yeah.
3 feet, 36 plus 11. That's 47,
7.
right? 47. So even if you consider this a corridor, you have 47, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So 44 is the minimum. The minimum corridor provided is 47.
The only place I think we may be out was in the attic. And if we should consider that a corridor to the right. Yeah.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah. I remember this was pretty tight.
Okay, so that might be a problem in terms of the corridor, but you have two means of egress here too. So you could potentially argue if this square footage can cover the amount of people that exit through here, then you don't care about this width. Y-
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's when like you start thinking of what exactly is the importance here, you know? Can people
Mm-hmm.
actually leave this building safely? That's what you're trying to accommodate.
Okay.
Um, okay, but yeah, that definitely, it's something to consider. Like when we design buildings, that kind of stuff is when you're like, okay, yeah, let me make sure this complies, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was an existing wall.
Mm-hmm.
That's why.
Yeah. Okay. We have two more items and then we're done with this. Again, you will have to go over and do the square footages and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So energy requirements, yes. System mechanical, this is when you go back into the one that you already did. This is why it's good to just do that. And then you just right there. There you go. All right. Then it says new life features provide full compliance. That's no modifications to the building that applies. We will do an energy analysis that relates to this. You can say potentially, if you want to be more specific, you can say see energy analysis report for more details. And then that relates to, hey, okay, most likely they're not gonna read all this, but at least you are covered. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Plumbing feature counts. One minimum facility for building occupancy. So how many bathrooms we have in here? One per unit, right?
Yes.
Okay. You have one, so you are fine. One existing restroom to remain and to be one existing restroom per unit to remain and to be renovated at all floors. That's why like it's important to read through um the analysis, because if I didn't read this, I wouldn't know that, you know, that I needed to update that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. If you had a different project that you need to know counts for plumbing fixtures, like the churches and things like that, you will go into our codes. You go into Massachusetts code, and then I have plumbing in here
Mm.
already downloaded. It's a large thing, so but let me see if I can find the table quickly so you can see what I mean. Okay. This is helpful to see because then you know like, oh, now I get it. So here, if you go at this table, table 10.10, this is where we take the specifications. Use group. Here you can see hospitals, one toilet per, room on whatever that is. If it's nursing homes, one toilet and one lavatory with direct access from each bedroom. If it is
Mhm.
if it is a combination of beds, then that combination of beds. If it's 8 beds, you need one bathroom that supplies to those 8 beds.
And when it says like the following ones that is per occupant, the number of people,
Mm-hmm.
that's the maximum occupancy number that will be used, right? For instance, 1 per 20. The 20 is the maximum.
Yeah, well, it's basically saying like this is when like your code analysis relates to this because depending on how big your building is, let's say you have 50 people in this office building and you are inside the B. What that means is that you need two toilets per 20 females. Now, how do you separate it? You just have to divide it in half. So if you have 50 occupants, then it will be 25 female, 25 male. You
Hmm.
don't do
Okay.
one and the other. So then you are like, okay, if it is 25, then I only need one per 25 males, like the toilet, but I need two toilets per 20 female, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Because it's
Okay.
more than 20. So then it complies into the other two, you can basically have to add another one.
Okay.
And then here, and it's funny because then here it tells you one per 50 um, for the lavatory, meaning the sink.
Hmm.
And then urinals, 33% of this needs to be a urinal. This is when it gets confusing because if you have one bathroom, then you also I don't know, you are a female, so you wouldn't know. But I've been to bathrooms that you have the toilet and then you have a urinal and then you have a sink and it's only one room. So who's gonna use the urinal if you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but that's just a requirement for the plumbing code.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions in regards to that?
No.
Okay. Yeah, and here you can see a more uh, there you can see more in here. You know, like restaurants. We use restaurants all the time. I need to do that one for the bakery, um, and etc. Then where is residential? They don't have. Okay. Yeah, one bathroom. You can see that residential one bathroom group. And that's basically it. So any questions in regards to this building code analysis?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. As I said, like just update this information and then you should be all set with that one. Okay, I'm gonna save everything here for you. And then let me that's basically it. So let me just stop the share, stop the meeting. Thank you, Carolina.
Thanks.